Welcome to Spirit Journey Collective. I'm your host, Sarah Tai. Get ready for compelling conversations with guests of all walks of life who believe they have found their purpose. Together, we will uncover unique backstories, hearing the raw experiences that led them to the work they are doing today. Let's expand our minds together with the captivating stories and inspiration that awaits. I have a really exciting guest today. Her name is Katy Russell, and this is actually someone I know personally. I've received my first Reiki session ever from her, among other really magical experiences, and I'm just really excited to have her here today. So thank you, Katy, for being here.
Thanks, Sarah, for having me. I'm excited to connect with you.
Why don't we start by introducing yourself and letting my listeners know who you are, what you do, and the services that you offer?
All right. I'm Katy Russell, as Sarah mentioned. I am a Reiki Master practitioner and teacher. So not only do I see clients for Reiki, but I can also attune people to Reiki to become practitioners and teachers themselves. And then some people choose not to work on others, that this is simply a practice for themselves. And then within that, I also teach random classes. Like last night, I hosted a kintsugi class where we smashed bowls and then we put them back together with glue and gold, representing ourselves and how we're shattered, but we're more beautiful with our pieces all put back together. So kind of everything I do is going to be energy related, healing work, really light filled. I do a lot of psychic development right now, which is actually where my foundational training is in. Reiki is just the last 10 years, where psychic mediumship is more like 20 years for me. So I'm excited to have those classes back again. A monthly spirit circle where we connect to spirit, connect to loved ones, and to hone your own skills. And as much as I enjoy doing this for other people, what really thrills me about this work is empowering others, particularly women, that they can do this themselves, and how to incorporate this into your everyday life, not just as a profession, but a lifestyle.
That really is amazing. And I love how you mentioned you're not just a Reiki master, you also teach classes. And you'll have to tell me if you have another one of those bowl smashing classes, because that sounds like something I'd love to be a part of. I've seen the meme with what you're referring to. Is it Japanese culture or?
It is.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which is Reiki is as well.
Right. Yeah. And so, yeah, I love that meme where it shows what you're describing, a bowl with, that was broken but fixed with gold. And it says that this represents how you're imperfectly perfect. And I've been in some of your classes. So anyone that happens to be local to Southern California, Wildemar is where your location is, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I highly recommend checking her spirit circles out. I have not been to her other classes, but I know that she is a great teacher and anything that she offers is worth checking out. And you also, when it comes to your like Reiki surfaces, you also offer that remotely too, right? So it doesn't matter if you're local, anyone could tap in and connect with you that way too.
That's right. I do distance sessions. So at a distance, you can be right here in Southern California, but want to stay at home, or anywhere in the world. I have clients actually in Australia, Europe, where we connect, whether it's over Zoom or just a phone call, and then they go completely distant and they'll be relaxing or sleeping. I do the session and then we reconnect afterwards and I share what I felt, and they can do the same and let me know on their end what they felt. And it's really remarkable. And I didn't believe it, to be honest. When I first did my training, I was like, okay, distance Reiki, whatever. These people are just giving me woo-woo magic stuff. And my instructor encouraged me to stop judging and to try it out for myself, particularly that I'm from the East Coast. So I have the opportunity to work on a lot of people at a distance. And I'm so glad I listened and trusted her, because I feel like distance sessions can actually be more in depth at a distance, Reiki sessions, because you're actually tuning in through a meditation. So you're not physically in front of me. We're not worrying about all the things that humans worry about, right? Like, does my breath smell? Am I doing this right? We just forget about all that stuff and tune in basically through the third eye and meditation, and can connect that way. So yeah, anywhere that you are, this can work. And this is for everyone. You don't have to be of a certain culture or background or any of it. Reiki is not a religion. It can do no harm and is good for everyone. Even my 2-year-old receives Reiki. So it's quite beautiful.
Thank you for sharing that. And hopefully our listeners consider reaching out to you. And I love how you mentioned that it allows people, especially remotely, to just get really comfortable. They don't have to worry
Mhm.
about what you're thinking or seeing. It's just you're meeting on a metaphysical level entirely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, which just really just allows that sense of I can be myself and open up. And I mean, granted, I have had sessions with you in person and I have felt very comfortable, but it does take time to open up to that. I know the first couple sessions, I remember I had my hands on my stomach and you're like, you don't have to do that. If you're comfortable, you can. But it was later on that I found out that I was like hiding that part of myself, you know?
Mhm.
So if I was by myself, I probably wouldn't have even thought about that. And so I love how you're also sharing that when you first started Reiki, you were like, sure, that's kind of woo-woo for me. So I would love to just hear your backstory, not just into Reiki, but into, how you found psychic mediumship. Is it something you were born with? Is it something that you found and worked on later on through life? Like where did you start? How did that come about?
My interest in psychic mediumship, I think, really became prominent in high school as I got closer, probably 17, 18 years old. I always had an interest as a kid. I would go, this is when I was living back in New Jersey. There was a town across the river in Pennsylvania that had witch stores and psychics. And my mom saw my interest in that and actually would bring me and let me go have my palm read or tarot cards. Because I think she knew this was going to be part of who I am. So I was lucky to have a family that supported that. So going to these psychic mediums. And then I had an instance myself where I was working in my family's yogurt store. We were cleaning up at night, and I said to my mom, we're going to get robbed. And she laughed because we were in a little cow town in New Jersey, more sheep than there were people at the time. Who wants to rob a little yogurt store? And I could feel it. I knew it was going to happen. And sure enough, that night, the whole strip mall got hit. So after that, my parents were like, okay, so when Katy feels something, we should listen, because that was just really random for me to pick out like that. And then I would feel things with friends, other people, situations I knew I wasn't supposed to be. And it gave me the courage to just get up and walk out, where a lot of teens, I think, you know, the social aspect of things. What are people going to think of me? Worry about being judged in that way. And I didn't have that, which could be a blessing and a curse, right? But I didn't really care what people thought of me. So I was really able to embrace this end of things and found people coming to me. Like when we would have a friend pass away, the majority of people were coming to me for comfort. So I started like paying attention, this is something different than the norm, and that I was comfortable with. So for myself, I started going to spirit circles, which was a group of people of like mind that got together, and every spirit circle is different. Back then, we were really more meditating, listening to energy. Coincidentally, the person leading the group at that time was a Reiki Master. I say coincidentally, there are no coincidences. But I saw where that really helped her. And then she led groups, and being in group and coming together with others that are this way was really helpful to find that you're not alone, how to ground, how to shield. Because you can find yourself feeling insane at times in this world when you're alone. So having a group, for me, like I said, having that spirit circle to go to, and then moving out to California, it was like a fresh slate, but also terrifying because everything that I knew and the groups that I were a part of were now gone. So that same mentor encouraged me to find a spirit circle out here. So once a week, I would drive to Riverside from Lake Elsinore and be in this spirit circle. And again, now this new person, she was also a Reiki master, but it still hadn't reached out to me yet. But I was going to spirit circles, working on psychic development, and then eventually became my grandmother's caregiver. And while I was in that hospice situation, I decided to go for Reiki training. Both of these mentors were Reiki masters. My best friend received Reiki while she was in the hospital having a baby. She felt like I was there with her. So all these things that were just pointing me in that direction, I decided to listen and went ahead and researched a good bit. Came upon my instructor, Colleen Benelli. She's part of the International Center of Reiki Training. She happened to have a class in San Diego that was in my time frame, and I was able to do that. And then 6 months later, I went to Portland to her home and did my master training. And that's almost 10 years ago now. It's wild how quickly time is going by. So for a while, I taught out of my home and I would see clients out of my home. That's when you and I met. You've been to my home in my little Reiki room, which is now a nursery, because within all this, as you know, I got pregnant, surprise, at 40. Yeah, so it's wild how it all turned, but was coming out of my home. I was really putting all my energy into it for myself, for other people. And then I wanted to branch outside of my home because not being from the area, I don't know a lot of people, and it was hard to get new people to come in. So I started actually teaching Reiki at Mount San Jacinto College in Menifee through the adult education program. So non-credit, but my advertising got into everybody's home through the college's magazine. So that was like, such a gift for me. Here I went from being at my own home and not knowing people to now being at the college and my name going out to basically the whole county. And I stayed there a few years, but then when COVID happened, of course, the school shut down, and in person was very difficult. But somebody tagged me that Sage Sanctuary in Wildemar was opening and that they knew this was where I was supposed to be. So I messaged the owner, Corey, who is amazing. She's also a Reiki Master, a shaman. Her credentials it got to take up like 3 pages. It's amazing, all the modalities that she's trained in. I came in and I met her. Had an interview with her, and she actually handed me the key that day. And here we are 3.5 years later. I'm actually in my office right now at Sage, where I see clients. I'm the resident Reiki Master teacher here now. I have my own office and I just love it. I'm super lucky. And not only do I get to do this for myself, but also for the community, and then meet wonderful people like yourself. And I get to just be in the spiritual world full time, which is my 16-year-old self's dream. So at 43, I'm actually in my dream job. Yeah, that you can do this, that you put in what you get out. It does work that way.
I just love how your story shows what breadcrumbs look like from the universe. And especially in hindsight, I think that's really when we're able to look back and be like, oh my gosh, this was my path from the start. I just couldn't see it from the bird's eye view yet. And I love how you had a supportive family. I think that is kind of rare in today's, I mean, maybe not now with like the new generation being raised, but my generation and beyond, I think that sort of open-mindedness was not as easy to come by in family structures. And so it sounds like just having that supportive and open-minded family also helped you on your path, because you didn't have to push against anything. They were very much like, oh, you're interested in this. Let's check it out. Not only
to a
that,
certain
but then
degree, yes. But they also very much wanted me to go to college. And I did. I tried. I went to like 6 different colleges, and really, on one hand, believing me when I would feel things and whatnot. But also on the other hand, this is not a full-time job. This is not something you do for a career. This is a hobby. This is an interest. So yes, support, but also friction, because their desire for me, get a job, get a 9 to 5, the white picket fence with the house, all of that. And that just didn't align with me. My life has never been normal. As much as I seem vanilla, I've had quite a colorful past. So that didn't fit for me. So there was support, but at the same time, finding my way within that. Because like I said, I didn't start doing this full time until my late 30s, even though this has been a lifelong interest. Because I had to have jobs, so you have to have income. And it can be hard to switch from the 9 to 5 regular paycheck to this, where my business is me. I have to make sure I have clients. I have to make sure my classes are filled. And that all comes back to me. So it's support, but also, as any parents, worry, right? Because they
Right.
can't see how this is a full-time job, which for me it is now. Even though I work less hours than I did when I was in a 9 to 5, it is my full-time job.
That does make sense, especially because even though they were open-minded, which I think I just from what you're explaining, I feel like the open-mindedness helped you trust yourself and help you learn that not only do you have these feelings that you want to listen to, but you have people backing you up. Like, hey, when you had the last time you had this feeling, you were right. It helped you
Yeah.
trust that, like you said, in difficult situations that you could have been caught under peer pressure. You said, no way, I'm getting a bad feeling. I'm not going to stick around. So I think it helped you in that capacity, but it does make sense because the old paradigm is saying you should go to college, get married, have two kids, how they say it,
Mhm.
like with the white picket fence and all of that. And it's like, that is the old way, the
Yeah.
old idea. And the new way is more, I feel like it's shifting more to do what makes you happy.
Mhm.
And I am curious, now that you've really made a name for yourself and you're doing this full time, has your family shifted their perspective or is it still a little hard to get their support?
Oh no, they've shifted fully because I'm doing it, right? And my mom actually got certified with me. She was my first student. So that was amazing. And they saw how it helped my family.
Oh, that's amazing. It took a little bit of time to convince them, but now they can see that, oh wait, no, this is a thing.
My dad actually started seeing spirit. So it's
Wow.
interesting where I can see why they always believed me because I think it's in my family.
Hmm.
Um, perhaps my grandmother on my dad's side, something along those lines where maybe they didn't share all that with me, but there was this underlying knowledge that my family has absolutely had this happen for years. But for my dad, not until he was older, letting me work on him, right? He lets me give him Reiki. He started seeing spirit in their home. And of course, he's older, so we had him checked out to make sure it wasn't Alzheimer's or something medical. So now they really can't be against it when it's like, well, here we go. You're having the same thing happen where, like, as a kid, my dad would have to sit outside the bathroom when I took my showers or baths because I could see spirit and I was very afraid. And for him, he was like, oh, you shouldn't watch scary movies and that's what's doing it. Where now it's like, oh, yeah, dad, did you watch a scary movie last night? Is that why you see spirit in the yard? Where it's, a full circle where I don't ever expect an apology or anything like that from the past, but just that kind of like, okay, there it is. I don't have to feel right or convince you or anything because it just happens.
It sounds like you stepping into your own authentic code and your own authentic self and doing it unapologetically may have helped them realize that anything that they had felt that maybe they were suppressing and not wanting to
Mhm.
acknowledge for themselves, you kind of being in your courage helped them start to listen to that side of themselves too.
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely.
I love that.
Then the work, is a lot of generational trauma, and we're healing that. So I think as we work on that and we heal the past, our relationships in the present also heal. And that's what happened there as well, that they were able to open up because we've been doing work. My family lived in New Jersey as well and moved out here when I was doing my Reiki training. So we had a lot of stuff we had to shuffle through and heal. And then my brother as well, he moved out during COVID and us working on our relationship. So it's neat how working on those things from the past, I could see where it came around. And like I said, getting pregnant at 40 and having a baby, and how that's also now healing my family and bringing us together.
Everything about your story, like I said, really just sounds like you were open to what was being shown to you, even if at the time maybe you doubted yourself, you weren't sure if it was the
Mhm.
right thing. Coming back to that trust in yourself, you really learned how to kind of listen to that voice when maybe others would have listened more to their parents and gone
Yeah.
with, I need to do this, I need to do that. This brings me to my next question for you is about purpose. I really feel like we all have a purpose. We all have something that we're here to do. And I think that sometimes it's not easy for everyone to be in touch with that sort of thing. But what would you say your purpose is? Do you think you found it?
I don't necessarily think that we have individual purposes like that. I think as humans, our purpose is to live life and have relationships and then to reflect and look at ourselves and to heal and grow. And for everybody, that may be a healing modality, it may be therapy. It's going to be different for everyone. But I think that we we live adolescence, and then we get to a point, which is a lot of my clients and students, where we realize we've been living for other people, or we've just been chugging along in the hamster wheel. But now we want to be mindful or live with intention, or we're thinking about God now, or spirit, whatever it is, in that regard. And everything that we've accumulated up to this point now offers us as adults the opportunity to kind of go in reverse and look at ourselves and be like, why am I the way I am? Like, why do these certain things piss me off and these certain things bring me joy? Why do I shake when I hear these certain words? Things like that, where, okay, let's start diving into ourselves now. And that's the purpose, is to get to know yourself. And then from that, following your interests and the things that make you alive. And for me, Reiki, psychic mediumship, tarot, I love all that stuff. So if that's what makes me feel alive, then that's my purpose. But I don't think you can find alignment with that until you start shutting off, like what you're saying, the parents telling you this, other people saying you should do this. And it's finding like, okay, everybody else be quiet. Let me hear myself. And then within that, my own interests are actually my purpose. And it's for me to love myself and follow through with those interests. And that's when I'm the best version of myself. And that's what I can give to the world, that balance of frequency and energy.
Yeah, thank you for touching on that, because it's true. You need to have a sense of alignment before you can really even know what your purpose is. I know for me, when I first dived into my spiritual journey, you were a very actually big part of that in the very beginning. I think it was maybe 2 months prior to meeting you that I had started listening to this podcast about like self-healing. And for me, I couldn't go into the quote woo-woo type topics yet, even though I believed in it and I was always interested in it. I'm also very analytical, and I needed that part of me to be satisfied. So I started with a podcast called Expanded that focused more on hypnotherapy. That was like self-hypnotherapy. And they talked about healing your inner child and your shadow work. And so I was okay with that. That was very scientific. It was scientific enough for me to dive in. And right around that time, I also was getting my first downloads, which basically told me, hey, if you want to do this work, you can't keep alcohol in the house. I was not an alcoholic, for the record, but I was a single parent who society said that it was okay to have a glass of wine at night. And, that was a reward, but actually it was keeping me out of alignment, and it was keeping me from dealing with the things I needed to deal with. And so removing that first, and then opening myself up to different healing modalities, you were actually my first experience beyond what I had played with as far as like tarot or oracle. Like, you were my first true healing experience. And even that, I remember walking away just like, wow, there's so much here that I didn't even realize I need to work on. And so it definitely took a lot of that to get where me getting into tarot, and then even leading me to here. So I do feel like acknowledging that no one can just wake up and find their purpose. It's usually some kind of, either it could be a big event that shakes you awake, but even then there's a lot of stuff you have to work through before you're even capable of understanding that, oh, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So I love that you explain that, and explain that it's not just something that finds you. It's something that you have to find for yourself by finding yourself.
Yeah. I had that interest with psychic mediumship, like I said, back to being a teenager, but I didn't have the capability of delivering messages without breaking down and crying with the people. I was so imbalanced that, yes, I had that interest and I knew that's the avenue I wanted to go down, but the way I was doing it was not helpful to anyone, in particular myself. So I see now, because most people know me with Reiki, but I can see now where that was my original interest. And then I had to go through Reiki myself, the training and all, to heal myself and all the things that were making me so upset when I would talk to people, like reading them and whatnot. And once I was able to balance myself, then I saw where psychic mediumship came back into my work, and I was able to actually help people, not it just being an interest, but actually understanding what was happening and how to control myself and the energy to be helpful. Because what would be the point if I'm not doing it in a mindful way and leaving people worse than when they showed up? That's not good for anyone.
Again, it just comes back to what I was saying before, that it just seems like everything in your life just kind of fell into place. You know, it was you were where you were supposed to be at the right time, and it all came back full circle.
Wasn't easy. I will definitely say that, because there was times when loneliness in this world, was getting to me, and I'm like, let me just move back home and that'll fix everything. But staying with it, sticking it out, and realizing that that loneliness served a purpose. I really got to let go of all the distractions, all the habits, people that I thought were friends that weren't actually friends, like, again, more distractions. So really helped me clean up my life. And that is lonely for a while. And then you start building back in the things that are quality friendships, that are meaningful, a job I do enjoy. So I had to tear everything down first, and chronic illness. I was sick for years. Even before COVID, there was a year that I didn't leave the house. So getting through all of that and then coming back, we'll refer to it like peeling the onion back. You never know what layer you're going to get. You just got to keep peeling. And then what comes out is beautiful if you allow it to be.
That makes sense too. I went through a period of that, and I know I'm still going through it. So like I'm nowhere near done. I can feel that too, but self-work isn't easy.
No, people think, oh, I'm, going for spiritual work and healing, and, sure, you do this stuff and you think you've got it, but then life shakes things up and hands you a whole different deck. And it's like, all right, well, now what do I do? Right.
There's a saying that I've heard quite a few times that I've adopted because I love it so much. It says, we think life is linear. It's start to finish. And it's actually spiralic, which means sometimes it's 2 steps forward and 1 step back, and 2 steps back and 3 steps forward. It's not as basic or as black and white as it seems.
No way. And even people that do this as work, they'll come in and, they're nervous to tell me the things that they're doing in life, because, they see you. And, I tell my students this: do not put your mentor on a pedestal, because we're just people too. And we ended up here in this position because life scrambled us up, and we needed to find a way to deal with it. And it worked for us. So now we're here to help other people whose life has gotten scrambled up find a way that works. So you're not coming to somebody that's lived this perfect life and has never made mistakes. Quite the contrary. We're usually the ones that have made such a mess that we are grateful to find something that helps us clean it up. And then we want to share that, that ripple effect with everyone. Like, that I feel amazing and good, and I want you to feel that way too.
That's good. That's a good point, because I do think that, especially you hear things like gurus and things like that, people can put their healers or their mentors on a pedestal. And not only is that not healthy, because we're all one, we're all equal, no one is better or lesser than. Someone might be a little more balanced than we are and have a little bit more mindfulness than we do. Doesn't mean we can't learn that. But I think remembering that everyone is human. Are you familiar with Neil Donald Walsh?
No.
Oh, no. Okay. I recommend checking him out. I'm a hypocrite because I haven't read his books yet, but he's really, really well known. He has this book called Conversations with God, and he basically channeled
I know that book.
higher power. Okay, yeah, he's the author. He's got several books out now. He was on a podcast getting interviewed, and he basically was like, look, I know that there's a lot of really profound things in there. He said, but I don't live that way. He said, I try my best to live that way and be mindful, but I have people in my life that say, hey, have you read the books you wrote? Because maybe you should. And he's like a huge celebrity basically in that field in a way. And he's even sitting here saying, look, don't put me on a pedestal either. I'm just human like you that was given information that I was supposed to put in the world, but it doesn't mean that I'm living perfectly either.
Absolutely. And as soon as you do put other people on a pedestal, be prepared to be disappointed, because that's all you're doing is setting yourself up to be disappointed. Nobody should be on a pedestal. It's nice to admire people and, oh, I like this author, so I read their books and whatnot. But to remember always, they're people too. They're going to mess up. They have a past. They're definitely not better than you in any way.
It makes me think of the definition of envious in a way, because when you put someone on a pedestal, there's a part of you that envies how the way they're living their life. But a really cool way to flip that is when you feel envious, write that down and think, okay, what is it about this person and the way that they live that I desire? And how can I align with that for myself? And so that's another healthier way. If you do find yourself putting someone on a pedestal, kind of check yourself and realize that there's nothing that stops you from being where they are, other than maybe yourself not realizing you can do that too.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's time to take a short break from our wonderful speaker. Are you in the need of guidance around love, career, family, life, or purpose? Embark on a spiritual journey inward with an intuitive tarot reading. Depending on what you're needing and looking for, I offer private one-on-one sessions as well as personalized email readings. It doesn't matter what the question is. A reading with me provides connection with your higher self, offering curated personal messages, or what I like to refer to as spiritual roadmaps, guiding you to the future outcome you desire. Readings are insightful and affordable. If you'd like more information or to schedule a reading with me, please see the link below. So, coming back to purpose, and of course it takes a journey to get there, but with the work that you do, mediumship and psychic abilities and your Reiki, what is it specifically about the work that you're doing that really lights you up? That's your why.
Seeing people come in feeling broken and watching them walk out remembering that they're whole, and getting to do that day in and day out. There's days that are tough, and there's days that I don't channel information and I'm like, is this still valid? Am I a fraud? And then you have that one client who just has a profound session, and you feel it, right? You feel it and you see their life change. And that's what keeps me coming back, right? These people that years later, they'll message me and they'll say something like, oh my God, I went ziplining in the rainforest because of you. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? And it's not because of me. It's because of themselves. They showed up for Reiki training. They did the work of self-healing so that they follow their inspiration. They follow their guidance. So it's not that I got them on the zip line, it's that I got them to feel authentically themselves, and that allowed them to chase their dreams. And then I hear these stories come back and it's like, oh, that's why I do this, right? Because somebody else is living their dream because I was able to help them get in tune with themselves and to let go of all the stuff that we're carrying around that's not ours. I love seeing that people put down that energetic suitcase, so to speak, of all other people's opinions, thoughts, what life has done to them. And while we're not responsible for everything that's happened to us, we are responsible for healing ourselves and living the best life we can. So I just am so grateful to be part of that with people, that I get to light the pathway for them. Because you guys know this, right? It's not the healer that heals you. We hold the space for you to heal yourself. So it's just an honor to be in that space, because I've had others be that for me and continue to be. So to be able to give that back is so rewarding.
I love that. And I love how you even touched on some of your own insecurities doing the work that you do, and then being reminded again and again, this is why I'm here. I can relate with my own work with my tarot. There are some sessions I have that I feel like it didn't land as well as I would have hoped. But then I'll have a session that just both of us are kind of like, did that just happen? Did I just say that? Did you, like, how did I pick up on that? And that is what has helped me trust myself more, is realizing the consistency of things working out way more often than they don't. This is where I'm supposed to be, but I'm learning that because I'm trusting through experiences that I'm giving back way more than, anything else.
I still laugh. I'll watch psychic shows and the psychic's reading somebody and they get like the name right and they're like, what? It's mind blowing. And it's like, well, aren't you psychic? Don't you know? Yeah, but it's still mind blowing, right? When it happens and the things all fall together, like you're blowing your own mind, that this even happens is mind blowing. So it's still, it's
100%.
It's awesome. Teresa Caputo, you watch her and the same thing. It's like, what? It's like, dude, you do this on TV. Like, don't you know? But in that moment, it's still thrilling when it jumps out of your heart like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. For me, it's like I get chills every time it happens. And it happens often. Like you said, it shouldn't be a surprise when things fall into place, but it's because I'm not really looking for it. I'm just showing up as that channel, just like as you are when you're doing your work. You just show up as this channel. And half the things that I'm explaining or saying, I don't really know how it fits in with the other person. I'm just sharing it because I feel compelled to. And then when I see it hit home, like really close to home, I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is why I'm doing this. I am supposed to be doing this, but it's a wild ride of questioning myself and validating all at the same time.
Yeah. And then we're so careful that our ego doesn't take over, right? That we want to be mindful and have that confirmation that, yes, I am channeling the right information, but then also staying grounded, that we don't let our ego take over, that, oh my God, I'm so great at this. And nope, that shuts it all down. So staying centered and grounded with the work is really important too.
Absolutely. So I would love to shift into what I like to call synchronicity story time. I love stories of synchronicities and supernatural type stories that are just like chilling almost in a good way, in a positive way. And I would love to hear if you happen to have any specific synchronicity story, whether it pertains to your purpose now or just in general. I mean, I do feel like your story overall is kind of like a giant synchronicity, but do you have anything specific that comes to mind?
My baby, that's standing out. Her birthday's in 2 weeks on 2/2. So her actual birthday is February 2nd, 2022. So I've got all my twos lined up, and I was married 15 years, and we just left it up to the universe and nothing ever happened. And then through being in this world consistently for years, drum circles, shamanic healing, Reiki, of course, everything healing. And then this baby, this surprise baby. And it was actually during a spirit circle at my home that I held privately. One of the gals looked at me and said, "You're being weird. You're pregnant." And I was like, "No." And then my brain went, holy shit, she's right. And went and bought a test, and I was. And then, you go to your appointments and whatnot. Oh, she'll be here February 11th. I said, no, she'll be here February 2nd. Like, I knew that was going to be her date. That's why she was coming. And that also helped me to relax through the pregnancy. I was high risk for a couple reasons and had to go in for, blood pressure and all kinds of stuff like once a week. I was never nervous. I knew she was going to be fine. I still went to all my appointments, of course. You're caring for another human being. I didn't want to just, put all things aside, but I knew it was just going through motions. That everything was going to be fine. And then 9 months down the road, I went in for one of those appointments, and they said, "Oh, why don't you go home and have a sandwich and come back because you're going to have the baby. We're going to induce you today." And that was actually February 1st. So they checked me in, and by the time, they induce and all that, it went into the next day. And it was February 2nd that she was born. Perfect, healthy. Even the room was 105. My birthday is January 5th. So all these things you can poo away, right? You can say, oh, 105, that's not 1-5. Yes, it is. So when I got in that labor and delivery room and saw 105, I knew, again, relax. Everything's going to be fine, because these are signs for me. These are synchronicities where things fall into place. Like my nurse's name is Wendy. My best friend is Wendy and Christy. So you're giving me a nurse with one of my best friend's name. Again, I know to relax. So it was like one thing after another, and everything was perfect. And she was born healthy and happy. And we're getting ready to celebrate our 222 baby's second birthday. So I know it's going to be a magical day.
I had no idea that her birthday was 222. And first of all, it's an amazing angel number. But
Yeah.
I mean, just the fact that you knew ahead of time it was going to be on that day. And I just love how you're able to trust into the sense that this is happening for a reason. And I remember before you were pregnant, you had pretty much accepted that you probably were never going to have kids. So we had that conversation. I remember telling you that, I just love your energy and you have such a motherly energy. And so I just remember that conversation. And then I think it was maybe a few months down the line from there that you shared you were pregnant. And I was so excited for you. It was just something that was meant to be, obviously.
Yeah. It's very interesting. I can see, and I actually apologize to my stepkids because they got pre-Reiki Katy, where I was a lot more tense and uptight and would snap a lot, where now I can see I've done so much healing work that, sure, I raise my voice now and then. Don't get me wrong, I'm not perfect, but I am way more calm. I am way more joyful and just a better mom now than I would have been 10, 15 years ago.
It's so interesting how things line up. Again, in that hindsight, we were able to see why it happened the way it had to happen.
Yeah. The family healing, everyone ending up in California, all of it. Yeah. That's where she is right now. She's with my family.
I would love to share too a synchronicity story that I had actually with you. And
Yeah.
it's one of my favorite stories to tell when I do talk about things that I can't explain. So it's up there with, the few stories that I have. Although it's so funny, the more I'm in this work, the more I realize that list is growing. It's
Yeah.
like, so eventually, I'm going to have more, but this one was one of the first ones I ever experienced. And it was with you. You had come to my home to do a Reiki session around Christmas time. And you had noticed a ornament of my late husband on the Christmas tree. And I remember you asking if that was him. And for listeners who don't know me, my husband, we were estranged and separated. We were not together at the time, but he did pass away unexpectedly in 2019. He's also my daughter's father. So there's a deep connection, even though we were not together and we were estranged and separated. And so his passing was really difficult to work through. In I want to say it was 2020 that you had come to my home. Yeah, because it was before I had my cat. That's important. So you came to my home in 2020 and you were doing this Reiki session on me. And then afterwards, you channeled him. And that was my first experience ever with mediumship. I had never experienced that before. And many of the things that you shared very much resonated and were relevant. But at one point you had said, he's telling me that he's going to shake the tree and make an ornament fall at some point, and he wants you to know that that's going to be him. And I'm very analytical. So, I mean, as much as everything you shared resonated, this was obviously more of a prediction, right? And I was like, I don't know. Not to say I didn't watch that tree like a hawk, because I did, just to see. But nothing really came of it except for about 2 days before Christmas. I was covering up my parakeet that was like adjacent from my tree across the room, and I was covering him up before bed. And as I'm covering him up, I heard the only way I could describe it, it was like this loud whooshing of wings, kind of like big wings, not my parakeet. He's too small to make that sound. And besides, he didn't move. I was right there. And so I heard this whooshing sound. And for a split second, I thought, Corey? And then a split second later, I said, no. And then a split second after that, my daughter said, Mom, an ornament just fell off the tree. And I knew it had to happen in that way because of my analytical mind. I had to first feel him. I had to dismiss it because I had to make sure that I wasn't like delusional. And then the ornament had to fall at that moment. And this was before I had my cat. That's why it's important. But yeah, I mean, I still get chills talking about it. It was such a confirmation, because some of what you had told me was that he was always going to be around, and he especially was there for Kira, for my daughter, wanted to be there to watch over her and me. But yeah, that was just like, oh my gosh, it had to happen that way. And I can't explain it. I don't want to.
And that's it. That's that knowing and that instantaneous when you thought of him so quickly, and then our brain turns on and is like, no, that can't be real. But it's like, oh no, I knew it. And trust that first feeling, right? So many of us poo-poo it away. We dismiss it. Come back to the feeling, not what's in your head, but what you knew in your heart. That's where the healing is.
Yes, I still struggle with that myself. It's so funny, as a tarot reader, when I do my sessions, super easy for me to open up as a channel and just trust the things that come out of my mouth and the cards that come up. Even when I pull cards and I'm like, this doesn't make any sense to me, I don't care. I just start talking, and it always
it's not
lands
for you.
Exactly. But when it comes to getting those kind of downloads just for me, it's still a battle of, I don't know. Is that an intuitive thing, or is that my ego trying to tell me it's an intuitive thing? So it's definitely, but I love what you're saying about it being instantaneous, because it is when it initially hits you, it's the first thought, and then it goes away, because it's not your ego. Your ego is the hamster wheel, right? The intuition is the quiet tap on the shoulder.
Yeah.
So I'd love to ask you too, do you believe that everyone here has a purpose? So I know that you prefaced with, well, you have to do the work, right? You have to heal, you have to do some really just that self inner work. But once someone is able to take the time to do that, do you think that we all have our own individual plan here on Earth?
That's a hard one to kind of iron out. I do think we all are here for love and lessons and whatnot, but I do think that there are certain people who are born to be doctors, who are born to be healers, caregivers. Maybe there's a category that you fit into. Like myself, I'm a caregiver. What form that comes in, it shows up differently. I'm a stepmama. I was my grandmother's caregiver. I'm a Reiki practitioner, right? So I'm healer in all of those, or caregiver, really both, in all of those aspects. It's just not defined that specifically Reiki. It's just that it's caregiver, and whatever that falls into at the time, it will. Even along the sense of like hospitality and things like that, that's always going to be my area. Where you have other people who, I don't care how much I study, I'm never going to be a brain surgeon. That's just not in my capacity. Where you have other people, that comes natural for them, and they read and study biology and things like that, and it's second nature. So for them, their category, right, would be more broad of a healer, where being a doctor or nurse, something specific like that. And then you have people that are meant to be protectors, right? And they're going to be people that are drawn to be police officers or in the Marines, things like that. So I think we have purpose in a broad sense, but, saying, oh, I was born to be president. Maybe you're born to be a leader. Yes, but specifically the president, I don't know that it gets that specific, but I'm a leader, and what type of leader I want to be, for sure. So I do think there's categories, but not necessarily something so detailed and specific.
I really like how you're able to explain that, because I feel the same way. I think that, like, for instance, for a little while there, I felt like I was only a tarot reader. Now I'm being called to do something more, which is a part of the reason I started this podcast. Mm-hmm. And I also created a Facebook community as well, where I want to create like a safe haven for people who are opening up to abilities and their spiritual experiences. And mm-hmm. which is weird, because it's kind of forcing me to step into a teacher role, which is very, very scary to me. But the podcast and the community that I felt called into, and even changing my business name from Journey Through Tarot to Spirit Journey Collective, that was a calling that I'm mm-hmm. answering very tentatively, but I'm doing it. And I can feel the shift. So while tarot was a season, it does encompass, I do think that ultimately I am a healer of sorts, and I mm-hmm. fit into that category, but I don't know exactly how or where that's going to take me. So I love that you're explaining that we all have different seasons of different things that leads us through different opportunities to wear different hats, right? Where we might be, in your scenario, you're a mother, you're a stepmom, you're a teacher, you're a Reiki master, but it all kind of falls under that same category of I'm a caregiver. So mm-hmm. I love that broad answer, because I do think that everyone has the potential of being connected with that thing that lights them up, that thing that why they're here, but it's not necessarily a specific role.
Right. Yeah. Because then we put ourselves in a box. And if we're ever changing and evolving and growing, that doesn't work inside a box.
No. It's so funny you say that too, because that was one of the reasons I changed my name among all these other changes I have going on. But I basically was told by my guides that my name, Journey Through Tarot, and sticking to being a tarot reader, I was actually told, you are not a tarot reader. I was like, what do you mean I'm not a tarot reader? But that's what I was told. You are not a tarot reader. You are meant to do more and offer more. And the name Journey Through Tarot was keeping me in this box where I didn't know how to expand beyond tarot, even though I mm-hmm. already was feeling like I was supposed to be doing something other than that. Yeah. So yeah, that box, it's your lens, really. It's, what lens are you looking through? Are you looking through a lens that keeps you limited? Or are you going past that lens into whatever you're being called into, and being open to all those possibilities?
Yeah, I like that.
From here, first of all, thank you so much for deciding to be a guest. I love the fact that you were interested, and especially supporting me in this new journey. And I couldn't think of anyone else who I'd rather have on here. You were just such a big impact on me with my own spiritual journey. And you have so much wisdom, and I just love your energy. So first of all, thank you so much for being here. Where can my listeners find you if they want to connect with you, whether they get remote Reiki or they want to check out some of your classes?
My website's just katyrussellreiki.com. Katy Russell. Reiki is REIKI.com. That's my personal website, so you can start there. And then also sagesanctuaryhealing.com is the website for this facility that I work at. I am just a practitioner here. I'm not the owner. Corey is the owner, as I mentioned. But this is where I see clients in person, host all of my classes. So that website and then social media really is where we post most things on Instagram or Facebook. If you follow myself, all my things will be there. And then Sage Sanctuary, it's not just Reiki, it's yoga, drum circles, belly dancing. Like we've got a whole array of different stuff, and it's constantly changing too. So not just to find me, but letting your intuition guide you to any of the classes here that might be helpful to you.
Thank you for sharing that. And again, thank you so much for joining me today. Is there anything else you'd like to leave with our listeners before we end the conversation?
Believe in yourself and others, and support one another, right? Like, look at us. We're two women out in the world, and when we lend support rather than competition, look what happens. And I think that's where we're going to be healing the world, showing up for each other authentically like this, helping each other rise. Thank you for being on that journey with me as well. And I agreed to this because it's you, and it's always easy to talk to you, which I think is part of you being a healer.
Thank you. I love that. That is such a beautiful way to end this. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sarah. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for joining me on another inspiring episode. Remember, your purpose is a unique and unfolding path. I hope these conversations have ignited a spark within you. Until next time, keep exploring, growing, and embracing the beautiful adventure of connecting with your purpose. Stay tuned for more meaningful conversations. If you're wanting more, consider joining our free Facebook community called Spirit Journey Collective, your haven for spiritual exploration and personal growth. Dive into a supportive community where sharing spiritual experiences is encouraged. Unlock the power of intuition, embark on a journey of self-discovery, and connect with like-minded souls. If this sounds like a community you'd love to plug into, the link is in the show notes below. If you enjoyed the episode today, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And thank you for joining me on this journey.